In class, we've been talking a lot about landforms and landform regions around Canada and throughout the world. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how those landforms are created. I'm going to talk about the continental drift theory, and I'm going to talk about the different landforms that we see around the Earth. The continental drift theory is a theory that says that all the continents on Earth were at one point connected, and that millions of years ago they broke apart and separated and floated along the surface of the Earth in the water and sort of resituated themselves, which meant that they were all one solid piece at one time, and then they broke off almost like puzzle pieces. But puzzle pieces that don't fit perfectly together. So there is this constant sort of shift and movement that's happening between those plates. Now, the continents themselves do not represent a plate. You could have a continent and then a body of water that's also a part of the same plate. Because remember, underneath all of that water is still lithosphere, or is still the Earth's surface before you get into the mantle and into the Earth's core. So it's not just the continents that are part of those plates, but surrounding bodies of water. All right. Now, the evidence of the continental drift theory is that there have been fossils found, a lot of dinosaur bones that are found in one region that is now completely separate from another region, but the fossils are the same, which suggests to scientists that those animals or those plants were once in the same region and were attached. So, for example, there were dinosaur bones that were found in parts of Alaska that were connected to parts of Russia. So at one point, they think that those two plates, those two continents were side by side, and those animals, were in that region. And then when the continental drift happened and those parts separated, there were some of those animals that ended up in Alaska and part of North America, and there were some of those animals that ended up as part of Russia. So that's how they have come to believe this continental drift theory. And again, I talked to you about the plates, and when those plates meet, because they don't fit together perfectly, they rub against each other and they cause friction, and whenever you have two things pushing against each other, something has to give. And that's often how our landforms are created. The most common being volcanoes. If you were to study the different plates in the continental drift, you would see around the outside of all of the plates are these, they call them rings of fire, where these volcanoes are creating. Because when those two plates come together and they cause friction, and then it's a break in the Earth's surface, so the magma that comes from the core of the Earth is able to break through the plates at those times, and the magma comes up, hits the water, cools, and creates islands out of volcanoes. Alright, so here we're going to get into some landforms. So, a fold mountain. A fold mountain is when the two plates are pushing against each other and one gives. So one slides under and one slides over, and the pressure continues, and the Earth starts to fold over each other. So as it folds, it gets higher and higher, creating mountains. And if you ever look at, when they've cut through a mountain and you can see the different, sometimes colors of rock or the different types of rock, that's created because of that pressure in the plates and the Earth piling a bit on top of each other to create that mountain. Then there are plateaus. Sometimes you'll see in a mountain region, you'll have an area that has high peaks, mountains, and then there'll be a plateau in the middle, sort of like my really bad drawing here. That's because there was this moment where plates were pushing against each other, and it created these mountains, and then the plates continued to push each other, and they pushed up the Earth in between. So you get this pressure here, and the Earth gets pushed up and up and up and up. So instead of having mountain peak and then valley and mountain peak and then valley, you get this mountain peak and this plateau because the Earth is being pushed up in that area to create that landform. Shields. One of the biggest shields in the world is the Canadian shield, and this is the original landform that all plates had. So before they pushed against each other, they believed that all the landform were shields. Plains. Plains, sometimes people get confused between plains and shields. The difference between plains is that they believe that when all the plates were together and all the continents were together, Plains were once underneath water. So for example, here's a region here. So imagine the green is the Earth's surface, and the water is where the blue is where the water would sit. So here you would have a body of water. Then this area separates. So as this part moves across, this water relocates, and it would drain out. So then this area here, which would be this area here, becomes a plain. So plains regions are where water used to be, but the water was dispersed after a movement, or it could have just evaporated because it no longer received water. Then we have valleys. Now valleys differ in size, they differ in severity, they differ in width, there's lots of differences. And it's based on the material that makes up the ridges, makes up the mountainous on the side. If it's really soft and erodes really quickly, the valley is going to get deeper and bigger faster. If it's stronger or more dense, then it's going to take a lot longer to erode away and create that valley. There also has to be something that erodes it. So there's water or ice, and if it's a river or a large fast-flowing river, it's going to erode the shorelines and create that valley faster and wider. If it's just a slow trickle that runs down through a mountain a little bit a day, it's going to take years and years and years to create that crevice in that surface. So that's just a little review on how some landforms were made.